Hi, this is Jenny Casson. Welcome to the training Escape the Bootstrap Trap: How to Get the Cash You Need to Grow Your Business Without Maxing Out Your Credit Cards or Draining Your Personal Savings. So, on this training, we're going to cover what is bootstrapping, why it's a trap, how I escaped the trap myself with my own business, what you need to know to escape the bootstrap trap yourself, and then my formula for getting the cash you need to run and grow your business so that you will never again be in the bootstrap trap. So, first of all, what is bootstrapping? So, this is a term that means using your own money and funding and resources to run your business. So sometimes this can work if you have enough revenues coming into your business that it covers all your business costs. But that's pretty rare. Usually, a business at certain stages, either when you're first starting out or maybe you're wanting to grow your business to the next level, there's often times when your business is going to demand some upfront resources that you need to invest to take your business to where you want it to go. So, for example, if I'm first starting out and maybe I don't have any customers yet, but I really want to create a beautiful website, that's an example of a situation where I'm going to need some money to pay for that website, and either I'm going to have to get that from customers, but that's not possible because I don't have customers yet, or I'm going to have to find the money somewhere else. And bootstrapping means I'm going to find that money maybe by maxing out my credit cards, by having a day job and using my salary to pay for my business. Maybe driving Uber at night to be able to support my business. And also another aspect of bootstrapping is running your business really lean or not getting the highest quality things for your business. Like you might say, well, I can't get a really nice website right now. I'm just going to hire a really low quality web developer to create an ugly website that I hate, but that's all I can afford. Now, if you search online about bootstrapping, you will see some articles saying that bootstrapping is a really good thing to do. And I can kind of understand that point of view. I actually used to believe it myself because I've worked at many nonprofits over the years, and nonprofits are kind of notorious for always doing everything on a shoestring, having third-hand 10-year-old computers and no one to really help anyone out. You have to do everything yourself. I got really used to that mentality. And I think a lot of us just naturally feel that, well, if I just do it myself and I don't get any outside help, then that's to be admired. But really, what I've come to see over the years is that bootstrapping for most businesses is a trap. And the reason for that is that if you don't have the right resources to have your business be successful. For example, a computer that actually works, internet that actually works, an accountant to handle your bookkeeping, a really nice website that people look at and say, I'd like to work with that company. Things like that, it can really hurt your business. And on top of that, if you're using your own personal resources or your family's resources or working an extra job to be able to cover the expenses of that you need to put into your business, that adds so much stress to your life because it just creates a lot of financial pressure. And so you might, if you max out your credit cards or, you ask your family to forego a vacation because you can't afford it because you've put so much money into your business, or you're asking your partner to subsidize your business. It's super stressful, and that can really hurt your business. And if you can't afford to hire the help you need, you're totally overwhelmed, you're working way too many hours, you can't provide the great customer service that you want to provide, you're trying to wear every hat in your business. These are all things that can really hurt your business and really hurt your personal life and your personal well being as well. So, for many, many businesses, bootstrapping is a trap. And unfortunately, too many people don't realize that it's not a healthy way to go and that there are alternatives. Sometimes when I talk to entrepreneurs about the possibility of getting some outside financing for their business, they feel like it's a failure to need that. And, they feel like I shouldn't need that money. I should be able to do this myself. And so I love to share that so many successful businesses would not be around today if they hadn't said, yes, I need some outside resources. So this slide shows a picture of Cara Golden from Hint Water, and I saw her speak once, and she talked about how she just knew that she wanted to build a really successful business, and that meant investing in having a really a great place to work and a great company culture and treating her workers really well and making sure the brand had a really good reputation and giving back to her community. And so she never tried to bootstrap her business. She raised money from the very beginning so that she could invest in all these things that could make her business great. And if she hadn't done that, she probably wouldn't have made it. And it actually took that company 11 years to break even. And many, many successful companies. There are companies that are currently considered some of the most successful companies in our country, and they still haven't broken even. So please, please get over that belief that if you need outside resources to make your business successful, that somehow you're a failure. And in fact, as the slide says, one of the top reasons for business failure is lack of financial resources. It just makes sense, at various phases as you develop your business in the beginning, as you take different growth steps. It's just natural that you need to invest some money up front to have the success you need to start to recoup that money. It's really almost like a cash flow issue. It's a timing issue. You need money now to build a business that will someday be able to generate enough money to be successful and to have the clients and the revenues that it has the potential to have. So I just wanted to tell you quickly kind of my story and how I got so passionate about doing this work. So back in 2006, I joined a law firm, and what we focused on at that law firm was helping our clients raise money from investors. So we practiced the area of law that is called securities law, helping our clients raise money from investors. And we saw a lot of success with our clients being able to do that. And it was really fun helping them do it. And so we were going along and things were going pretty well. These are some of the staff that we had at the time. And then all of a sudden, after about a year of me being at this law firm, the founder of the law firm got an opportunity to go do something else on the other side of the country. And he said, Jenny, I think you know enough about this business. You've figured a lot of stuff out. I think you can run this business for a while. So I said, okay, but I was really scared. I had never done anything like that before. I had never thought of myself as someone who could run a business and be an entrepreneur and not just do the legal work, but be in charge of all aspects of the business, sales, marketing, human resources, all of that. So it was scary and it was hard. So I got really overwhelmed because there was just so much to do. We did have a great team, but we really didn't have some of the basic things that we needed, like a really excellent outside marketing team or a sales team. And so we were kind of struggling every month just to kind of get by and cover our expenses. And I felt kind of like a hamster on a hamster wheel because, every month we'd be struggling and working so hard and things would go okay, but we just weren't getting to that point where it was no longer a struggle. It was always just like, yeah, we got to work really hard just to kind of cover the basic costs. And, I was in the bootstrap trap because I didn't have that extra money I needed that to invest in things that would lead to greater success of the business and allow us to grow and be healthier. So we finally realized, hey, what do we do for our clients? We help them raise money. Why don't we raise money ourselves? So we went ahead and, took our own medicine, ate our own dog food, and we decided to go out and raise some money from investors for our own business. So it was a law firm and a consulting firm. And that allowed us to invest in some really high quality branding and marketing and some other tools that we wanted to provide to our clients to make their experience better. So that was really the turning point for me. Even though I had helped other businesses raise money, I finally did it myself. And this slide shows a picture of the really great video we were able to create to market our company. And it's a beautiful slide because it just shows what it's like to raise money from investors who want to support you and want to be part of your success. And so once I did that, I realized raising money from investors when you really need some outside resources to invest in your business to make it to take it to the next level is a really important skill to have. And it does involve a lot of legal work, but there's other skills too to being able to do it. And even though I knew how to do the legal part, it took me a while to be comfortable with going out and talking to investors and figuring out who to talk to and how to ask. But I got more and more comfortable with it, and now I'm a huge fan of raising money from investors, and I love helping my clients do that as well. So I've actually raised over 1.3 million. That there was that first raise of 154,000, and then we raised some more money 2 years later. And then more recently, I worked on a project where I raised another about 1.1 million, using two different strategies that I can tell you about later. But I'm just a huge fan of having this in my pocket as a tool that I can use when I really need to bring new resources to my business in order to grow it. So, when I talk to entrepreneurs about raising money, I hear a lot of concerns come up. Here's some of the things I hear. So, and these are actually myths. So, I'll hear a lot of people say, I don't want to raise money because I don't want to give up any control of my business. Or they'll say, well, I wouldn't even know who to ask. I don't know any investors. Or my business isn't the type of business that an investor would be interested in. My business just wouldn't be attractive to investors. It's not the right kind of business. It doesn't have the right trajectory. It's not in the right industry. I don't have enough traction yet. There's all kinds of reasons why people think their business might not be attractive to investors. Um, and, they say, oh, I could never do that. I find the whole thing intimidating and I wouldn't even know where to start. And I'm not confident enough. And I haven't proved my business enough. There's still so many things I don't know. And, so many things I need to figure out in my business. Or there's a fear that even if you did have investors, it would make life really difficult because all of a sudden you'd have to change the focus of your business. So that instead of focusing on all the things you love about your business and doing the things in your business that just feel right to you and really fit with your goals and values and mission, that all of a sudden you'd have to think about nothing but your investors and making them happy and making sure they get paid as quickly as possible and as much as possible. And these things are actually all myths. None of these things have to be true. There are some ways of raising money where these things could get in your way, but the good news is I've helped people raise money in a way that allows them to not have to give up any control, be able to find investors that are a good fit, even if you think you don't know any investors, have a business that is attractive to the right investors, regardless of what industry you're in or your plans for your business or what stage you're at. Be able to raise money without being super experienced or super confident, because there are ways to raise money that are more like having a friendly conversation. You don't have to be perfect, you don't have to be super experienced or confident. And then also, you can have investors that are happy to let you run your business the way you want to run it in alignment with your goals and values and mission, and are not going to push you to make them money at the expense of everything else. So now I'm going to share 3 things that are really helpful to know if you want to escape the bootstrap trap. So number 1, finding the right investors is possible regardless of your industry, how long you've been in business, and where you're located. And I say this based on experience. I've helped dozens and dozens of businesses raise money. I've raised money for my own businesses, and I've seen success for all kinds of businesses at different stages, of different industries and different geographical locations, consulting businesses, food businesses, restaurants, um, childcare businesses, just about everything you can think of, I've seen. Um, and honestly, every business I've worked with that's really persevered and stuck with the process has had success raising money. So I'll just give you some examples so you can start to see what I've been lucky enough to see over the years of just the types of businesses that can be successful raising money. And these are just a few examples. I have many others, but I just thought I'd share some diverse examples of the kinds of businesses that I've helped to raise money over the years. So this one is called Berkeley Side. This is a newspaper, like a local newspaper and media company, news journalism company based in Berkeley, California, and they decided to raise money from their community, their readers. So they offered an investment opportunity to their readers. They offered a type of equity, so their readers could buy some ownership interest in the company. There's no voting rights associated with the equity, but it allows the equity investors to get to share in the profits as the business is able to have some success. So this business actually was able to raise $1 million. It did take them some time, but they stuck with it and they were able to raise $1 million. Cero is another business that I've worked with to raise money. This is a business that was started by actually a nonprofit in Boston. They brought together some residents of low-income neighborhoods in Boston to form a worker co-op that does recycling and composting, and they were able to raise 350,000 from mostly people in the Boston area who just wanted to really support this business, and this allowed them to buy a truck and really get their business going. So they were pre-revenue when they raised money, and they raised $350,000. And these were people that really didn't know a lot of wealthy people. I mean, these were the founders of the business were low income people, but they were still able to raise $350,000. This is another business called Spotlight Girls. These are the 2 co-founders who started a business that provides after-school programs and camps for girls, and they've raised about 500,000. They used a lot of different tools to do that. They were able to bring in some equity investors. Again, the equity investors have no voting rights, and because they were able to raise money from some equity investors, it attracted the attention of more um, kind of institutional type investors who then invested more. So they were able to pull together a lot of different sources to raise 500,000. This is one of the earliest businesses I worked with that raised money successfully. It used to be called People's Community Market. It's now called Community Foods Market. And when they first started raising money back in, I believe it was 2011, they had nothing. They had no physical location. It was really just an idea. There was no revenue for sure because it's a physical supermarket in a low-income neighborhood in Oakland, California. And they've been able to raise, I believe, almost $2 million from equity investors. Um, and they still haven't opened. They've been working on the project since about 2011, but they just broke ground, so I'm really happy for them. This is a business called Recompose based in Seattle. This Katrina Spade, the founder of the business, is has experience with architecture, and she has designed a whole new way of handling um, death care, taking care of human bodies after death. And it's actually not legal what she's proposing to do, but she's done a lot of work on this, and a lot of people are really inspired by what she's doing. It's a process that's very eco-friendly and very kind of just super helpful for the family to feel really comforted with their loved one's death. So anyway, it's not even legal yet, but she's already raised over $500,000, also in the form of equity. And of course, she's using some of that money to lobby to make it legal. This is another business. This was a nonprofit organization that raised $250,000 by offering a loan. People were able to lend them money um, with a 3% interest rate, and they used that money to start a worker co-op, which is a greenhouse in Western Massachusetts. And then this is what I worked on recently. This is a fund, an investment fund, and we raised over 1.1 million. We offered loans, so the investors lent us money. We're paying a minimum of a 2.5% annual interest average over 8 years. We may pay more because the payout is based on the success of the fund. And this is a nonprofit, and we actually did it in two different phases. One phase where anyone could invest, and then a second phase where it was only open to wealthy investors. So we raised it in two tranches. So those are just a few examples of the businesses I've worked with to raise money, and you'll see how diverse they are. Some were very early stage; they had no revenue yet. One isn't even legal yet, but yet they were able to raise money. So I hope that inspired you a little bit to think about how you might be able to raise money too. So moving on to the second thing I want to share with you, investors are incredibly diverse. You can identify the right investors and avoid wasting time on the wrong ones. And that just takes some kind of open-mindedness about who investors might be. So, who exactly are investors? What do you think about when you think about investors? A lot of people, a certain image comes to mind, and you might think, oh, well, if I have to go out and find investors, I'm going to Google investors, or I'm going to go to one of those angel investor websites like Angel List, or I'm going to go on LinkedIn and find people who have investor in their, in their profile. But that's actually a really limited view of who investors might be. So I'm going to talk about kind of the different kinds of investors that I've seen as I've been doing this work. So, so this picture shows people from Shark Tank. And, this is often what people think of when they think of investors. So these are wealthy people that are investing their own money. Sometimes you might call someone like that an angel investor. That term came to be quite a while ago. I remember back in the 90s, people were talking about angel investors. And that term, um, I'm not exactly sure why they're called angel investors because they can make your life very difficult. You've probably seen on Shark Tank that they want to come in and take control of your company and tell you what to do and take a huge chunk of ownership. So that's one kind of an investor who, who's very wealthy, wants to invest their own money and maybe come in and kind of take control and push you to grow as fast as possible so that they can kind of get their money, get a large sum of money out as quickly as possible. And then, of course, there's venture capital. So, in the kind of in the investing ecosystem that has grown up around high tech companies, venture capital is a big player in that. So venture capital is it's a type of investing where these companies get together and they don't invest their own money necessarily, but they raise money from others who become they're called limited partners. The investors are called limited partners, and they put their money with these venture capitalists, and then the venture capitalists go out and they pool all this money, and they go out and try to find deals. And the model that they use is that they're looking for businesses that have a very high growth potential, because what they want is to invest in an early stage company that within hopefully 7 years at the most will be able to really take off and hopefully get sold to a larger company at a very high price. So, when you hear about an exit, a big exit, or a liquidity event where a startup gets sold to another company, like everyone says, oh, I'm going to sell to Google, I'm going to sell to Facebook. When that happens, that's considered a very successful outcome for a venture capitalist. And a lot of angel investors are also using that same model where they're investing in businesses that they're hoping will go on that path, grow very fast, and then be acquired as quickly as possible. So because of these kinds of investors, get a lot of attention. Some people think that that's the only way that someone can invest in a business, and that if your business isn't on that path and you're not trying to grow as fast as possible and be sold to Google or Facebook, that you can't possibly have an investor. But these are just this is just one way of investing, and yes, it's a very it gets a lot of attention. You'll see a lot written about this style of investing, but it's really a fairly small part of the universe of investing. So if the Shark Tank model and the venture capital model really aren't a good fit for what you're looking for, and by the way, with these kinds of investors, you are pretty much going to be giving up control, and they're going to become your boss. So if these things don't sound good to you, and if it's not a good fit for you, don't worry, because it's just really one small part of the investment ecosystem. So when I think of investors, I don't so much think of the Shark Tank folks or the venture capitalists. I think more of your customers, your suppliers, people in your community, activists that are passionate about the same thing that you are. So if you look at the world of investors in that way, all of a sudden it just opens up a whole bunch of potential investors that you may not have even thought about, because they might not be, they're probably not going to be labeling themselves as investors on LinkedIn, but they are investors. So the majority of the residents of the United States are investors, and that's about 125 million people. And investors are incredibly diverse. So when I talk about investors, I'm talking about anyone who has an investment. So that could be someone who has a retirement account, or just, their money is in a mutual fund on the stock market. But these are all people who are investors who could potentially invest in your business. And because they're so diverse, you can't really generalize about them in the same way that you can generalize about venture capitalists. Um, it's very likely that there's some of them out there who are going to be a really great fit for your particular business. So I did some math. I wrote a book that came out last fall, and I went ahead and calculated how many professional investors are there in the country. And when I talk about professional investors, I'm talking about active angel investors. So these are wealthy people who are actively involved in looking for investment. So people like the people on Shark Tank, people who might list themselves on a website like AngelList, people who belong to angel groups. Those are active angel investors. Venture capitalists, investment funds, wealth managers, people who spend their days thinking about investing. And I added up all the people who you could put into that category, and I compared that to the total number of investors in the US. And professional investors only make up 0.3% of all the investors in the US. So it's a real shame if you're limiting yourself to just the professional investors when you're looking for investors. It's amazing the great things that can happen when you start to broaden your view of who the right investors might be for you. And you start to look at people like your customers, people in your community, people who are a lot like you, who are really passionate about the same things you are. And, and there's some data about what happens when you do open up to more diverse kinds of investors. So you might have heard that in venture capital, there's been, a lot of negative press lately because um, most of the funding that comes from venture capital is going to a very, very non-diverse group of company founders. It's mostly white men who mostly go to a few schools, Stanford, MIT. Um, it's a very small amount of funding that goes to women and people of color when you're talking about the venture capital style of investing. But this organization called Investabule has done some research on what happens when you open up the investment opportunity to everybody. So they looked at investment opportunities where they publicly advertised and anyone could invest. And in those cases, it was actually the women owned and the companies owned by people of color were just as likely to be successful, if not more so, in raising funding. So that just really shows that if you open up the investment opportunity to more people, um, you don't have to worry about fitting into a particular mold of the kind of business that is likely to be funded. Just about any kind of business can be funded when you open up the investment opportunity to the right investors who may not be professional investors. And you may wonder like, well, okay, all these investors you're talking about, Jenny, they're people who maybe have never invested in a small business before. They don't think of themselves as investors. They might have their money in like an IRA or a 401k. How am I going to get them to invest in my business? Well, the thing is, most investors are really frustrated and anxious. I mean, think about yourself. If you have money saved up in a retirement account or, you have some money, set aside in some kind of a mutual fund, people have a lot of anxiety around that because, first of all, most people, regular folks who invest, almost all of their money is going to be in the stock market. And people have a lot of fears and doubts and anxieties about the stock market. One, we know it can be very volatile and unpredictable. We know that more and more trading is being done by computers and algorithms that can lead to all kinds of craziness and crashes and flash crashes and stuff like that. We know that there are people who have the ability to game the system, and those of us who are just not part of that world often get screwed by that. We also know that the stock market, the value of the stock market might be very, very skewed for many reasons. There could be another big crash. Also, most investors, and the studies have shown that most investors do want to invest in alignment with their values. And many of us who feel that way worry that if we're investing in the stock market, it's very hard for us to feel good about what our money is doing in the world. So, if you can offer an alternative to investors where they can invest in your business and it's something that they care about and are passionate about, many investors will be very excited about that. And of course, you're not necessarily asking them to take all their money out of those mutual funds or those, you know, bond funds or whatever, wherever their money is, but just putting some percentage of their investments into something different, diversifying their portfolio by investing in your business. And investors are looking for lots of things that you can offer to them. So, of course, they're looking for a financial return on investment. So, you do want to offer some kind of a return on investment, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the kinds of returns that maybe a venture capitalist is looking for. I mentioned that I just raised $1.1 million with an average annual return over 8 years of 2.5%. So if you could offer a return like that, which basically just means you're paying out 2.5% of the amount that was invested every year. If you could, have enough profitability that you could afford to pay out a return like that to your investors, that can be very attractive. RSF Social Finance pays a return of 0.75% to their investors, and they've raised many, many millions of dollars because they're very values driven and they do a really good job of stewarding the money. Um, of course, investors are looking for trustworthy, high integrity leadership. And when they invest in your business, it feels a lot safer than investing in the opaque stock market where they have absolutely no relationship with the companies that they're investing in. If they know you and they trust you and they see your integrity, that's going to make them feel really comfortable. Um, People are looking for a reasonable level of risk, and of course, everyone perceives risk differently. Some people, if you ask them to invest, they're going to say no because they're going to say, oh no, small businesses are so risky. But other people are a little bit more open minded and they realize, wow, this is a business that I see in my community is really successful and there's a demand for what they're offering. And I'm a customer too, and I love this business and I trust the founder and I see how passionate the founder is. They might perceive that as relatively low risk. I've actually experienced that myself. I personally would rather invest in a small business where I know the founder and how passionate they are. I know that they care so much about what they're doing that they will, they're going to work really hard to make their business successful. And so I really trust that I can trust that. And also I know they'll feel really bad if they aren't able to, provide the return on the investment that they were hoping to provide. So that makes me feel like it's a relatively low risk to invest in those kinds of businesses. And I know there are other investors out there that feel the same way. Transparency, that's something you can offer because you can have a direct relationship with your investors. They can come in and, you can invite them to special events where they get to see, kind of the inner workings of your business, and you can share things that, share whatever you want so that they can start to, they can feel really comfortable compared to the stock market where it's completely opaque and nobody really knows what's going on. Also, I have invested in things sometimes more because I wanted to be part of the community that that company represented and less because of the return that I was going to get. So if your company is about building a community or tribe, offering that as part of the package that you're offering to investors can be really, really attractive. And of course, people love to be able to tell their friends about cool things that they did with their money. It's really boring to say, oh, I invested in, such and such mutual fund, but it's really exciting to say, I invested in my kids' summer camp. And then, of course, like I said before, a lot of investors, a majority of investors in our country, want to invest in alignment with their values. And if you can offer an investment where people can feel good, like their money is doing something that they feel is good, that they're putting their money towards something that is consistent with the world they want to see, that can be a hugely attractive thing for investors. Of course, you can also offer cool perks along with the investment. Not all of my clients do that. Sometimes it just doesn't make sense. But if you happen to be a business where maybe you could offer like a discount card or, you know, a special seat at your restaurant for your investors or something like that, that's always really fun and people love that. Also, when you're offering an investment and people are investing directly in your company, there are no fees involved. There's no middleman. So that can actually be really attractive to investors because they don't want to be paying all these middlemen. They want to, be able to have all of the money they invest actually go to the company they're investing in so that they can get the return that they're looking for. So those are just a few examples of the kinds of things that would be excited to get that you might be able to offer them. So, number three, you can set the terms of the investment to fit your goals and values. So, there's a lot of misinformation out there about what it looks like when you bring an investor in. Like you'll often hear people say, "Oh, don't offer equity, don't sell equity in your company because then you have to give up control." That's actually not true. I gave you some examples of businesses that offered equity to investors but didn't give up any control at all. So be aware that you have lots and lots of choices when it comes to how your investors are going to come in. And as long as you provide some kind of financial return over time, investors should be happy with that. And in fact, you should design what the terms look like because you know best what really is going to make sense for you. You don't want to offer a return on investment that isn't really reasonable for you. So, for example, like I mentioned with Hint Water, that company took 11 years to break even. So she obviously wasn't going to she wasn't going to raise money from investors with the promise that, oh, yeah, I'm going to be paying you 10% a year starting in year two. No, that wasn't going to be possible. So you want to offer investment terms that really fit your particular business, what you think is likely to happen, what you want to happen. You don't have to grow faster than you want to grow. If you want to grow slow and steady, that's completely fine. In fact, I think that can actually make some investors more comfortable because if you're promising like, "Oh, we're going to 10x our business in 5 to 7 years," that can be a very risky thing to try to do. If you push to grow that fast, it can often kill your business. Whereas if you just grow 10, 15% a year, slow and steady, it's actually more likely that your investors will see money and you will be able to be successful and not push yourself to the point where you can't sustain yourself. So, some of the things that you'll want to decide about when designing the terms of your investment offering are, do you want to offer equity or debt? Both of those things are investment offerings. And some people, when they hear debt, they think about a bank loan. But you can actually offer debt instruments to investors that are very different from bank loans. So you can set it up in such a way, like I did with the Force for Good fund. The payout is dependent upon the revenues to the company. So the better we do, the more we pay out to our lenders. You can set it up in such a way where there's no collateral, there's no personal guarantee. So debt can actually be a great way to raise money from investors if for some reason you would rather not offer equity investment in your company. And of course, equity is an ownership interest in your company, which can be a really good tool to use if you need more patient investors, if you're going to take some time to break even. And again, you do not have to give up any control when you sell equity. And you do really want to think, how will investors get paid? I'm amazed how many entrepreneurs raise money without really thinking that through. They'll just sort of raise money on some terms that maybe their lawyer hands them some kind of a document. Usually it's a convertible note. And they don't really think about, how is this all going to work out? How are the investors going to get paid? And that can create a lot of unpleasantness down the road if you end up wanting to do something that doesn't meet your investors' expectations. So be really clear up front. How do I expect my investors to get paid over time? And you will want to think about exit. So um, most investors are going to want to know, if I do want to get my money back out, how is that going to happen? It doesn't have to be through a sale of the company. It could be through, maybe they could sell their investment to somebody else, their stock or their loan agreement. They could sell it to someone else. Or maybe you could refinance the investment, or maybe you could start setting aside some money over time to buy out investors that are ready to exit. So there's all kinds of ways that investors can get their money back out. But think about that in advance, because a lot of investors are going to get uncomfortable if they don't know how they might get their money back out in case they need it. And again, like I mentioned with voting rights, you don't have to give any voting rights at all, Or if you want, you can give voting rights. So just know that you can do whatever you want with that. And then I always like to add in perks. If it fits for your particular business, sweetening the deal with perks is always a nice thing. So, this is a very, very brief discussion of the topic of possible investment terms. We could go on and on about all kinds of creative types of investment offerings, but I just want to give you a taste of all of the different decisions that you have available to you. So, I just want to tell you the right investors are looking for you. Like I said, there's lots and lots of people out there that are really frustrated with their options. In fact, I was reading a study recently that a lot of young people are so worried about putting their money into the stock market that they actually just keep their money in cash, like seriously, like in their mattress. So just be aware that when you offer an investment opportunity to the right investors, the people who are a good fit for you, the people who are passionate about the same things you are, they are going to be really grateful for the opportunity. You're not begging them for a handout, you're offering them a really cool opportunity to diversify their portfolio and invest in something they care about. And, assuming things work out, make a financial return. Of course, there is going to be some risk, but all investments have risk. So don't worry about the fact that there's some risk there. So, over the years, working with lots and lots of different businesses to raise money, I've developed a 6 step formula that I sometimes call the right investor formula. And if you follow these 6 steps to design your capital raising strategy, you will save a lot of time when you go out to raise money. I don't recommend just sort of jumping into it without having a plan. Creating a plan is what's going to end up making your process a lot more efficient and successful, and you won't kind of find yourself wasting time talking to the wrong investors or, ending up with investors that just are not a good fit and end up making your life very miserable. So, the first step is getting clear on your goals and values. And this includes getting clear on the things that are very important to you that you consider non negotiables when it comes to what you want for the future of your business. It also has to do with what you see as the future of your business. So, do you see your business growing really fast and then hopefully getting sold to Google or Facebook? Or do you think, no, I'm probably going to run the business until the day I die and then I'm going to leave it to my kids? So, just being clear about kind of what you see for the future of your business is really going to help you figure out who your ideal investors are and what to offer them, what kind of investment is going to be the best fit. Step two is getting clear on who your ideal investors might be. And this is the same process you would go through when you're doing a marketing plan and thinking about your ideal customers. You just want to get a picture in your head of who these people are and where they might hang out so that you can start to find them. And of course, as you start to talk to them, you may evolve who you see as your ideal investor, and you may have several different kinds of ideal investors. But the more clear you are on this, the more efficient your process will be. And again, you won't waste time with the wrong investors. Number three is what to offer. And this is the piece where we talked about, should it be equity? Should it be debt? How will investors get paid? Um, and, there's really a lot of options there. There's all kinds of creative ways that you can design your offering. And the key is just to design it in a way that really fits with what you plan to do in your business and what you think is likely to happen over time. Number four, I haven't mentioned this yet, but this is an essential piece of the puzzle. You do have to choose a legal compliance strategy. So every time you raise money from investors, you are going to be dealing with state and federal securities law. So you just have to choose which of the many different options you're going to use to be able to make sure that the way you're offering your investment opportunity is legal. So there's many, many different options, and you just need to make some decisions. One is, do you want to limit yourself to accredited investors only? And accredited investors are wealthy investors, and it's a term that's defined under federal law. Or do you want to open up the investment opportunity to everybody? Some lawyers will tell you you can only have accredited investors, and that's actually not true. Most of my clients choose to open up their investment opportunity to everybody. And I think that you basically are 10xing the number of potential investors you can have when you do that. But you just need to decide in advance so that you choose the right legal compliance strategy to let you reach out to the people you want to reach out to. Another question is, do you want to publicly advertise the investment opportunity or do you want to keep the offering private? It is possible to publicly advertise an investment opportunity, but there are some legal hoops you have to jump through. So before you go out there and start shouting from the rooftops that you're looking for investors, just be sure you have the right legal compliance pieces and requirements done so that you don't end up inadvertently breaking the law. And then, do you want to offer the investment opportunity throughout the whole entire United States? Or are you going to just be focusing in one or a few states? That's also going to have an effect on the legal compliance strategy that you choose. The next is designing your investor enrollment strategy. So, how are you going to reach out to investors? Are you going to, do a public offering where you can just advertise all over the place that you're raising money? Or are you going to reach out privately to potential investors? Even if you're publicly advertising, I still recommend having a strategy for having one on one conversations with potential investors. And I don't think they need to be um, in the form of a pitch. I don't think a pitch is a really great way to bring on investors. I love to just have conversations with potential investors where I get to know them and what's important to them, and then I can get a sense of, is what I'm offering something that they might be interested in? And little by little, we can develop rapport. I can tell them a little bit about me, demonstrate how passionate I am about the business and why I really care about it. And the conversation, if it's a good fit, will naturally lead to a potential investment. And then the last step, number 6, is addressing obstacles head on. So that means making a plan for what you're going to do if obstacles come up along the way as you're going out and raising money. And the kind of obstacles that I find are really common are ones where um, you could call them mindset obstacles. So these are things that the tricks that your mind might play on you as you're raising money. And the way this can often manifest itself is that you might find yourself being so busy doing 10 million things other than actually going out and talking to investors. So you might have everything in place, you might have the perfect offering, you might have your legal compliance all done, but somehow you just can't seem to find the time to talk to investors. This happens a lot because a lot of us do have resistance about talking to investors, especially if you've never done it before. A lot of feelings can come up about it. So, having a plan in place in advance, knowing that that could happen, is really great. And one of the things I really recommend for that is having buddies that are raising money at the same time that you can brainstorm with and have accountability with. Is That's a really great strategy to get you through the process so that you can stick with it. It can take some time. I've had some clients take 2 months to reach their goal, and I've had other clients take a couple years to reach their goal. So something that helps you stick to it and not give up and not get frustrated is a really important part of your plan. So that's the 6 step process that I've developed and that I use with my clients to help them raise money. So I hope this was helpful to you. If you'd like more resources or if you'd like to talk to me about your particular situation, feel free to go to my website, jennycasson.com, and we have some really interesting resources there, articles, things you can download, and of course, there's a way that you can contact us if you'd like to reach out and talk about your situation. I hope everything goes well for you as you start on your capital raising journey and escape the bootstrap trap.